This is Vegas Dave, and today I'm going to talk about my next big investment. Recently, you heard the headlines about me breaking records in the baseball card market. This next big investment's in real estate overseas.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on a lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on the plot and the scheme. The true stock trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one shot for the kill. The breeze come freeze up, straight dropping the chills. I'm talking taking over pieces and shares. A ball big sky high. Check the movement is here. Yeah.
Well, when I first met Dave, I had never heard of him before, so I really had absolutely no idea who he was. I was briefly told it's a guy with a lot of money, goes by the name Vegas Dave. He's already spent big money in Cabo, he's interested in this area. And when I first met Dave, I mean, we didn't really start off looking at multi-million-dollar pieces of property. We started off looking at $100,000 view lots, some properties with commercial potential. But it wasn't until things progressed a little bit more that I realized who it was that I was dealing with. And at that point, we started looking at some more high dollar stuff, and the relationship just progressed from there.
And when you meet a guy like Dave, obviously the way he doesn't dress like necessarily somebody who's coming in and be serious about spending, money in that. So.
No, he doesn't. Actually, I've got a funny story about that. When we closed on about $1 million worth of beachfront property, Dave walks into the closing and he's got on board shorts, flip-flops, a basketball jersey, and a backwards hat. And I think everybody in that room was a little bit more prepared for like a suit and tie type of guy to enter. And it was one of the more memorable closings that I've ever been in. I mean, it's like this guy looks like he just stepped off the beach and he's spending $1 million like it's nothing, let's just sign the documents. I got other things to get to today. I mean, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning now every day because Dave's up at 4 a.m. and I honestly feel there's no other way to be successful. If you're not up first thing in the morning making moves, it's not going to happen. When I do work with clients that are spending money in that price range, generally they don't just walk in the door one day and say, hey, I'm here to drop 7 figures. It's usually a lengthy process that starts with email communications and sending multiple listings back and forth, and then a first trip, and sometimes there's an offer on the first trip, but not always. Sometimes it's the second or the third trip before an offer is written. So I would say that it's unusual in my experience to have a 7-figure buyer walk in the door and start making offers almost immediately.
In basketball shorts.
That's the best part. At this point, we've closed on about $1 million of oceanfront property. We've also been involved in negotiations on several other pieces of land for quite a bit more money. None of those have come to fruition at this point in time, but $1 million is what has been spent to date.
People tell Dave he's crazy for spending so much money on land where there is no power, only solar, and has water truck for water. What are your thoughts on Dave's investment?
I think it's a great investment. I think that getting those 4 lots, 80 meters of Pacific Ocean frontage that is accessed within 1 hour of the international airport, to me, it's an amazing deal. I mean, I feel like being able to get those properties for less than $300,000 each is literally a no-brainer. If you comp the value of those lots against the surrounding markets, you'll see properties selling for 5 times that amount. I really think it's a no-brainer, and it's going to be a very, very successful investment one day.
Within 10 years, do you feel that a hotel will come here and buy Dave out? Do you feel that is that the type of thing that's in play for these markets?
I think there's a possibility of that, especially being that Dave owns 4 contiguous lots, giving him 80 meters of Pacific Ocean frontage. To my knowledge, there's nobody else on the street who owns 4 contiguous lots. So if there were a resort developer to come in interested in that area, he has the most viable piece of land for a project of that nature.
In terms of oceanfront property, that is a particularly intelligent investment, yes?
In my opinion, I mean, there is only one front row. Once the front row is sold and built up, they're not making any more.
he was telling me just before we started talking, he was telling me about how there was a title issue at some point with a couple lots, and then you went and you let the person know, essentially showed Dave's YouTube with him buying a $500,000 purse.
That's correct. We were under contract on an additional 2 more oceanfront lots that are located just to the north of the 4 that he's already acquired. And as Dave mentioned, there were some title issues that I'm still in the process of getting sorted out right now. Dave decided to step away from the transaction when it expired because we really don't know how long it's going to take to get this issue sorted out. But yeah, it was a really entertaining afternoon when the agent representing the seller came into my office, and I pulled out the smartphone and loaded Dave's Instagram feed and showed him where the money that was allotted for the 2 oceanfront lots had been spent. We had a good laugh, but at the end of the day, I think that was just one more really intelligent decision on Dave's part. I mean,
it's amazing.
It's just funny when, you know, you say, hey, this guy was going to buy these 40 meters of Pacific Ocean frontage, but there was an issue, so the money went towards the world's most expensive handbag. I mean,
it is funny.
It's funny, right?
Of course.
The name Vegas Dave is well known within this area, and I can say I've got a handful of friends who are all following him on Instagram, and he's a topic of conversation frequently. I did put him into Google and I did see some things come up, but I made the decision that I'm going to formulate my own opinion based off of my own experience in dealing with this person. Obviously, when you get somebody with money and success, the haters come along with that. So I think that I made the right decision by choosing to formulate my own opinion through working with them and just ignore the stuff that came up with a Google search. Dave has been a man of his word 100% in my experience. He's been actually a pleasure to work with because he does what he says he's going to do. I needed to get Dave's signature on some documents, and I ended up having to take them down to Cabo, and he gave me a little bit of a forewarning. He said, you know, I've got a friend who just came into town and they're not here on business, they're here on pleasure, so there may be some partying going on at the house when you get there. I like to describe the experience as walking into a rap music video. I mean, I arrived at Dave's house, and before I could knock on the door, there's a beautiful girl up on the 3rd floor hanging over the balcony. Are you Mark? Dave said to tell you to just come on up. So that's what I did. You know, I entered, rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor, and when I stepped out, it was literally like walking into a rap music video. The way I remember it, there were 7 or 8 beautiful women in the swimming pool. There were 2 girls making out on the waterfall overlooking Cabo. There was music. Don Julio 1942 was flowing. I mean, it was everything that I ever would have expected it to be, and maybe some more.